Hi, this is Chris Hayden, and I'm presenting today on our final EDL 680 Modulate project, which has to do with Enterprise Architecture Framework. In overview, I'll be going through 11 different sections. First, we'll start with an introduction to enterprise architecture in general. Second, we'll talk about the organization, the structure of the organization that I'm currently working at, and the enterprise architecture framework for a segment architecture that I'm proposing. Third, we'll go through one major EA framework that we're using here, which is TOGAF. Fourth, we'll look at some key questions as we start implementing and planning the enterprise architecture. Fifth, we'll look specifically at governance of enterprise architecture. Sixth, we'll look at the current business state of the proposed enterprise architecture. Seventh, we'll look at the future state of the enterprise architecture and complete a bit of a gap analysis to help link up our desired goal with our current state. Eighth, we'll run through a quick application rationalization and how we're going to make decisions about future and current applications. Ninth, we'll look at data standards and how this can really help with enterprise architecture and making decisions about what applications and what systems to put in place. 10th, we'll look through a technology brick for the segment architecture that's proposed here. And finally, we'll conclude with my own personal kind of reflection on really what I've discovered in the course. Okay, so the first question, the first section is really kind of what is enterprise architecture? So basically it is a really detailed and systematic plan of the enterprise that looks at it as a system, and this system is composed of structures that are interrelated and they have various components. And the enterprise architecture looks at not only how they're interrelated, but also how we can govern them. It's a mapping of all the application and data management systems, and again, how governance is going to be impacted, or the enterprise will be impacted rather, in its pursuit of its mission, given that these things are interrelated and dependent on one another. So really, it's kind of the way that enterprises are able to achieve or ensure that their missions are achieved, given the complex and multi-layered structures that make up enterprises today. So if we look at this diagram here from our textbook, what we can see is that we have this three-dimensional kind of enterprise structure, and we have a current architecture and a future architecture. And so this is one of the big reasons why enterprise architecture is important, is because it helps us move the organization, the enterprise, towards a future desired state. And so you can see here that there are multiple layers in terms of the enterprise architecture itself, and that those are going to be revised. They don't all have to be revised, I guess, as we move from a current to a future architecture. But the point is that this architecture management plan, or the enterprise architecture and the plan that's in place, links up these current and future architectures, and also notes that there are different levels and that these levels are actually interconnected. And so we'll talk about that in a moment when we talk about TOGAF, but basically these goals and initiatives, you can think of these as kind of the highest level in view, and they're going to impact these other areas down on line to the lower levels. So the question was posed: should we leave IT decisions to IT departments? And kind of the idea that in many districts, technology integration plans are considered separate from district strategic plans. Definitely, that's a problem, because technology initiatives have to be integrated into the larger business architecture framework of the organization if they're going to meet the goal of actually doing what we want them to do, which is achieving the organization's mission, right? So the idea that technology is used for technology's sake is completely flawed. And in some cases, you might get impacts, but as we've seen in readings and other cases over the duration of the course, you can run into big problems because technology costs money. It's not free. It's not cheap. It takes training to ensure that people are able to use it. All sorts of reasons why we have to be very careful with the steps towards which technology we're going to integrate, and they should be very carefully aligned with the goals of the organization. And so this whole process of developing an enterprise architecture and planning really ensures that the chosen technology, whether it's applications used or how data is going to be managed, is in line with the vision and the business goals of the enterprise. And so this ensures that we have impactful integration. It can also do things like make the technology more interoperable, or we can ensure that that's in place. We can ensure that it's easy to use given the requirements, or as easy as possible. And all of those can lead to positive impacts of technology integration. So in terms of the overall value of enterprise architecture, number one, it really provides guidance for identifying the business competencies or the goals that a business wants to see in itself. You could think of that as like its future state in relation to its vision. And then it carries that on through down the line to, for example, data and applications and information systems and technology. And linking those up is really, it's kind of one of its key strengths. So it gives us strategy for prioritization at all of those different levels. It ensures that we have this kind of holistic view of the enterprise, and also that we're recognizing the dependence of the different levels on one another, starting with the vision and moving to the business and so on. It gives us a framework for making careful decisions, and this ensures that we're not wasting time, resources, money, etc. And really, it can be seen as the key to managing the movement of an enterprise forward towards where we want to go, or where the enterprise, the desired goals determine it wants to go. So in terms of my own current organization, for this presentation and really for my project for this course, I kind of went back and forth in a couple of areas, and I think that's normal and kind of represents the type of decisions and the type of growth that happens when you apply an enterprise architecture type thinking or framework to decision making. So initially, I had reviewed, and there's a link to a video here that you can watch. I won't play it again, but you can go and check this out. It kind of reviews all of the systems and architecture frameworks that are in place in my current place of work. For most of these videos, I posted them on the internet, but I realized that I've referenced the school directly, and I don't think that's kind of ethical to do to make it public, so I haven't posted this one on YouTube because it's not super private or proprietary, but still it's maybe sharing a bit of information that the school wouldn't want freely available on the internet if someone were to search, even though I don't reference the school in the title, only in the images. But anyways, basically there are a variety of different architectures that exist, and I've identified some gaps that were present here, and you can read more about them. You can hear more about them in the video. So in terms of TOGAF, this is kind of the EA framework that maybe is like most popular. It should be noted that there are multiple enterprise architecture frameworks out there. What I liked about TOGAF, not only that we focused mostly on it in the course, and it was recommended highly, but this architecture development method that lays out the steps in developing an enterprise architecture. Yeah, you can consider it kind of a framework diagnostic. It consists of 9 sequential phases and 4 domains within the planning phase. So we've got a business architecture focus, a data architecture focus, an application architecture focus, and a technology architecture focus. And if you click on this link, you can see, the description of those different elements. Kind of one thing that's interesting to note is how many of them are actually involved with planning, and I'll talk about that later in this presentation. But the idea that carefully constructed steps in planning are essential for success is one key take-home that I got from this course and from studying the open group architecture framework. So in terms of the preliminary phase, kind of asking why, what, where, who, how, yeah, we know that we need to engage key people. And so at my organization, looked at a bunch of different layers or kind of areas that are going to be involved. So if this is the TOGAF framework, you can remember we mentioned that a second ago, that there's a business architecture and information systems and architecture and a technology architecture, with the application consisting of data and applications. And then we also have other layers that are involved with, for example, migrating elements and then governing the whole process. So who are kind of the key players, and also what to do when changes occur or when new data or new situations arise that require changes. So this idea that there's a change management system is really important. So in my current organization, I definitely recognize that kind of in terms of strategy and motivation, our board of directors they're going to be the key decision makers and the ones that we need to get on board and engage. In terms of the business layer, and this actually is kind of one of the most difficult that I have getting access to, because our school definitely does not like to talk about money with anyone almost. It's really kind of strange, but yeah, the board of direction, the board of directors, the business manager, our CFO, and our HR manager, though perhaps not so much unless we were going to recruit somebody that was a part of this enterprise architecture. In terms of our application and technology layers, yeah, our IT manager and team, they're actually pretty open, and we have a good relationship with them. And then in terms of implementation and migration, it would be our administration, so our principal, vice principal, assistant principal, all that, department heads. So for this presentation and for the enterprise architecture that I'd like to propose here, really it's driven by this need for personalized learning and differentiation. And that is, or at least the idea here is that applications that students can use online provide for a huge range of differentiation and many more opportunities for personalized learning than we could ever provide in the classroom. So once we have these kind of personalized learning applications that can collect data, and that's what they do, right? And we can start using that data to making decisions at even the individual student level. And once we have that data at such a fine scale, it allows us to make whole school decisions based on that data. If not whole school, then certainly department. The idea that the data needs to be easy to use and accessible for monitoring, our total growth, but also that data can be used by teachers in their approach, and that's something really, really powerful, and something that is really in line with our vision and one of the services that we want to provide to our customers or our students, right? In terms of ensuring academic growth and challenge. So all of these things kind of sum up into this idea that the technology can transform the teacher, and that we're not just looking for a substitution to something that happens in the classroom. Anyways, I mean, I guess to a certain extent we are, because differentiation and personalized learning does to a certain extent, but the level of personalized learning and differentiation that we're after, it's not comparable. Um, yeah, so in terms of what the impacts that this can have, again, on our organization and the business services that we can provide, well, in terms of supporting, gifted and talented learners, and also our kind of low performers, I think it would be just tremendous. And so the program that we focused on, or that I focused on, is called Achieve 3000. And really, what we're considering is a strategic rollout focusing on the languages first. And interestingly to note, this idea kind of built up in my head personally as a result of taking this course. And we were initially looking at a program called DigiExam, and the idea was just to digitize our exams. And what we realized in the course of exploring different software and things, that there's actually um, the one thing that DigiExam does nice is that it's customizable, and we could kind of use it in any situation. But we realized that comparing that program and Achieve 3000, that while Achieve 3000 is much more expensive, the benefits are just tremendously greater. So yeah, what is Achieve 3000? Well, oops, I have 300 there. It should be 3000. Basically, it's a personalized learning platform that is aimed at accelerating literacy skills, and it actually impacts literacy in all content areas. So you can actually personalize the focus. We can use it for interventions. So when we have students that are low English language learners, or early English language learners coming to our school, it's often very difficult to support them in those first few steps, and this will kind of open up the door for that. In terms of our goals of kind of getting students into the best universities possible, many of these skills are kind of directly aligned with what students are confronted with on standardized tests that will be used in things like SAT and PSAT. I hate this term, like a non-teacher dependent program, but really what I mean is teacher support. And so it frees up teacher time. So rather than have a teacher one-on-one sitting with a student, they can be sitting with a laptop, and the teacher their time can be used more effectively. And it's not about giving them vacation. It's really about like letting them target their efforts where they're most needed. And kind of the last one that I'm kind of most excited about is that we're going to have huge amounts of data. So we can use that data in a strategic goal-setting context. So yeah, we can think about kind of feedback loops, and this is a diagram from the Zachman framework. But we consider kind of the what, how, where, who, when, why at a variety of different levels. In terms of feedback loops within our own organization, really what we have is weekly meetings with our board of directors. We do submit termly reports, and they're produced for our business layer. What we would like to do is set up focus groups that allow for communication between teachers, admin, and our IT team, so they can kind of begin to, well, just so that there's a way for the information to flow between those two areas. Currently, it's very difficult, or at least it's kind of out of the way, right, for a teacher to tell something to IT, even though they tell us a lot of things, and we'll try and pass it on. The idea that would be an important line of communication could be developed further. And then in terms of our admin and department heads, we have weekly staff meetings, and we also have meetings just with the department heads. So in terms of gaining access, so I think one of the best ways that we have to gain access would be through the presentation of proposals during our weekly meetings. Often those have budgets. We do have a yearly budget that we submit. Again, proposals in terms of IT, there's a lot of connection there as well. And then we do have special meetings with the department heads that could be, or that ensure that we have access to them. So in terms of governance, the fifth element of our presentation. So I've laid out roles considering our current kind of structure, organizational structure. And again, this is for what I'm calling our segment architecture that has to do with the implementation of Achieve 3000. And really the focus of that is, personalized learning through the use of technology. So we have something that we call our pedagogical leadership team, or the PLT for short, and that's composed of many of the board members from our board of directors, our curriculum coordinators, and our principal. And so I'm proposing that, excuse me, both the overseer, manager, reviewer, audience, and project methodology communicator are basically this PLT team. Now, I'm a little worried about that because it means that there are potentially multiple roles for this group of people, which is about 6 or 7 people in total. But I don't see another option really, given the culture of our organization, and also kind of the subject matter that we're dealing with here. So I feel like, in terms of kind of subject matter experts, we would want definitely some help from Achieve 3000 and support. But I think we kind of get it for the most part. So it's not like we're going to be actually writing code and things like that. So I think that in terms of subject matter expert, we have our English team and perhaps the consultants from the company. In terms of our project teams, we have our admin team, which is a subset of the PLT. Our CFO and business manager will be the procurement manager team. And then we have our services team, which is our IT team, which is actually quite a few people. In terms of the enterprise executive, our school founder and owner and chairman of the board. And the chairman of the board, I think, is also the person to champion. And in reality, we're kind of responding to his request for a program that increases literacy and English skills in our students. In terms of author, I've nominated myself to be the author. And again, the approver would basically be our school founder and owner. They sign off on everything, and they're the final decision maker where the buck stops. And then we also have our English HOD and principal as advisors. So in terms of our overall current business services, I've copied and pasted this large document that was a part of one of the modules. And really what I would like to focus on is a subset of this for this segment architecture. So for this, for our overall, right, I did look at transportation, teaching and learning, human resources, finance and business, technology, real estate, and maintenance and operations. But for this, I would really like to look at teaching and learning and technology. And so, again, the EA, or the enterprise architecture that I'm describing here, really has to do with the implementation of this personalized learning program, Achieve 3000. So in terms of teaching and learning, the kind of the service that we're after is not only assessing but tracking and plotting skills and data related to language phase progression, and that's the Common European Framework of Languages converted to an IB scale. So there's 6 language phases. So 1 is very low, and 6 you're basically on the way or just about to be like a first language level speaker. In terms of input, that's internal. So we do have teachers collecting data on students. However, really the requirement is only related to summative assessments. External input, we have parents that are really putting pressure and complaining about how long it takes for students to progress through the different phases. There's a lack of understanding about how language is learned, I think, a little bit, and they tend to see being placed in a language acquisition class as kind of like a demotion. So, I think every school in the world really wants to be able to improve the language skills of its students, so I don't think we're unique, really. How it aligns with our organizational mission. So definitely innovation via technology is a big part of our mission statement. Academic excellence and holistic development as well. So the key features really, there's a lot of data that we can collect and use to help support students through moving through different phases or moving up through the phases. And the kind of what we really want is a real-time source of data that's systematic and is produced in response to student formative assessment that's online and that's adaptable, that doesn't require teacher decisions and teacher time. And kind of all of those things are encapsulated in the Achieve 3000 program. So basically the gap that we've identified here is that we do have a lot of data, but it's very hard to collect and it's hard to put together, and it takes a lot of teacher time. It's hard to use it basically, right? So for example, each year our English department head will take I think it's 6 different measures, but that requires each one of those measures to collect takes maybe 20 or 30 minutes, right? Because there's a verbal part, and she's got to grade the writing and things like that, and grade things. So you can imagine, right? If it was basically instantaneous or hardwired into a program, we could spend our time trying to figure out how to respond to those needs rather than just collecting the data, right? So the steps would be to implement or buy Achieve 3000, really train teachers on how to use it, and regularly review the progress and support them in the implementation, and then collect that data and analyze its impact against our strategic goals. So in terms of technology, I think these are kind of overlapping, but basically we have lots of student data. We have data on all sorts of kinds of things, but they're basically spread across 3 different locations. The type of data, if we really want to get down to the type of data that we could get with Achieve 3000 and look at, that kind of data is not stored by teachers, or at least we don't ask them to, in an online format, and it would be pretty tedious to ask them to do that. At our school, it's pretty small, and teachers teach about 4 or 5 different classes. You can imagine the the problem that would cause for teachers. In terms of input, we do have, again, teachers collecting data on student performance. But again, they're stored in multiple locations, and we don't have a framework for asking them to collect these fine scales of data. And so some teachers might be doing it, other teachers might not. In terms of external input, many students and parents are requesting additional help, and that's kind of overwhelmed our English team. So again, just as with teaching and learning, technology via innovation via technology, academic excellence, and holistic development. And kind of the key feature here is this centralized data management system that directly feeds back and determines the resources that the students are exposed to. So that decision-making process is like within the program, and that means that we can kind of we can make data-driven real-time decisions, or the program will, about modifying student plans against learning goals. So it's huge, right? So currently there's no centralized and interoperable system for connecting student work or the formative feedback that they get on that work with assignments set by teachers, at least not to the extent and the speed that could be carried out with Achieve 3000. And basically the steps are the same as with teaching and learning here. So in terms of application rationalization, so when I submitted this assignment, we looked at a variety of different applications and numbered their tasks to give them an identity. I found 3 of them, and this one down here, DigiExam. This is kind of what we were looking at as a possible solution. It would also serve kind of other things that Achieve 3000 doesn't necessarily do, and we may keep it because it's got a very low cost. of only 80 cents per student. But the other two important applications that we need to consider are, number one, we use a program called ManageBack, and this is a student, teacher, parent kind of like learner communication system. So parents can view messages and planning and reports and things like that. They can get graphs of their students' performance. SAP is actually a program of our school's own design, so they paid quite a bit of money to start it up, but basically they trained key personnel at the school, and they're basically maintaining it. So after this, kind of high startup fee, each year we're basically only paying manpower. It's okay. It's a little glitchy, and because our team kind of designed it, you can imagine there are things that they didn't think about. And so, if you're thinking about like Power School or one of these other really big student data systems, there are things that come up, problems with calculations, and sometimes our team kind of thought that they could do it one way without talking with the teachers or the admin about how to do it. And yeah, we get a few problems pop up and things like that. So yeah, what I'm shifting for this enterprise architecture proposal is basically a segment architecture design that uses Achieve 3000. And so here is kind of a look at the application rationalization, including Achieve 3000. It's about $150 per user, which is very high compared to DigiExam. Yeah, in terms of data input, so you can see here it's got a huge range of data input, and those are all tied to the activities and the assessments that the students do. Yeah, a wide range of formative data. It's in real time, and definitely it would be like an emerging technology. Training is required, but then again, yeah, in terms of, yeah, we do get real-time tracking of data with ManageBack, but it's all dependent on teacher grading outside of ManageBack and then putting that data into ManageBack for students and admin and parents to see. So in terms of data standards, basically these are universally accepted kind of like vocabularies, names, definitions, concepts, and things like that allow for interoperability and universal evaluation of the elements that are going to go into enterprise architecture, technology architecture, things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's a common language that we can all speak in order to evaluate the usefulness of potential options and see if they're real options or not. So yeah, the Common Education Data Standards, or CEDS, is a big one. Yeah, so having these common data standards allows us to explore explore things at a bigger scale. So we can combine measurements and things from different institutions, metrics and things that reflect whatever the case is, usefulness or problems. They can be universally understood, and really it allows for greater innovation because you don't have to spend the same time you would checking if a program is can work in your system. I can remember years ago kind of doing a lot of research for another project on a program, and I had kind of missed the first idea that it was actually for Windows, and all my other programs were Mac. So that's kind of, that would be very easy, but you can imagine there's lots of other requirements that need to be checked out. And knowing that the interoperability has already been confirmed, just, it means that you don't have to spend as much time checking out the program before you want to try it out or put it into a plan. So for my project, I looked at IMS Global, which is one of the largest international consortia, and basically found that Achieve 3000 had been reviewed and that it's certified and vetted, and that there is actually a database with hundreds of other compatible applications. And so I haven't really gone much further exploring which of those to use. Manage Back and SAP, I'm sure, are not on there because they're pretty specific. Um, but yeah, the idea that I do have access and that our school does have access to all of these options through IMS Global is really valuable. Yeah, so I have a link to my video here. I posted it on YouTube, and you can review some of the important aspects of IMS Global there, and how having these different learning or these different consortia can benefit innovation and the implication, the design of enterprise architectures. So in terms of technology bricks regarding this segment architecture, which again is the use of Achieve 3000. So kind of considering our case in specific, currently the kinds of data that we would get on Achieve 3000 are stored in Google Sheets and Google Docs. There are some like online versions of tests and things that our English teachers and English team would use, but they're kind of scattered. And again, you have the results from those tests having to be transcribed or copied and pasted from one location to another. Yeah, we can't get rid of SAP because our school's already invested a lot of money into it. But really, I think that Achieve 3000, at least the language learner component, could be very quickly integrated once we kind of check out, do a little bit more exploration and testing and strategic planning. For us, the nice thing about it is that we would, it doesn't have really a major impact on our finances because the plan would be to turn it over to students as a textbook type resource. So something that they would need to buy. And maybe the first stage of that would be it's only for our language acquisition or language learning population. And we can use them as kind of a focus group or a beta group. So strategically, 2 to 5 years, there are a variety of other services that are provided by Achieve 3000, including eScience 3000, which I'm really excited about, and the idea that we could have personalized learning in that area as well. Level Set, which prepares students for university applications and things like that. And since we have the ability to change the code of our SAP system, I think once our IT team and our board of directors sees the impact of Achieve 3000, that this is actually a real option that we can go back in there and make some changes to our SAP school system so that it can integrate some of the Achieve 3000 data. So in terms of, oops, I realized that this is leftover from the template. But in terms of retirement and elimination, rather than Microsoft Outlook and Pop Email, sorry, disregard those. What we would probably be retiring and eliminating would be, for example, some of these online versions of the test. It's hard to eliminate or retire Google Sheets and Google Docs because we use them for so many other things. But in this context, they would certainly be eliminated and retired. Manage Back, because it's so nice and well integrated with our planning requirements for the International Baccalaureate. I don't think we'll ever get rid of that. And I've listed Google Sheets and Google Docs here, as I mentioned over here. So in terms of baseline, so we have Google Sheets, we have the free version of DigiExam, and we have kind of sample tests for language phase determination available from different English sites. And what we would like to look for in terms of emerging technologies would be other options and things coming out of the Achieve, and I realize I misspelled it, Achieve, sorry about that, Achieve 3000 suite, and also Manage Back integration. So Manage Back is actually pretty forward thinking, and just in the past few years they've made several integrations with other programs, including Google Drive, and so it's not unthinkable that Achieve 3000 might get in there. So finally, in terms of critical findings for the course, kind of the first key takeaway that I took from the course was that the detail and the structure and the process of enterprise architecture frameworks are really kind of the keys to their impact. So it's not enough just to have good intentions. It's a very complicated they're a very complicated set of relationships, and when you bring in technology, you really need a framework to ensure that all of those different areas, right, the business and data and application and technology, that they're all aligned. And further, that you have the governance worked out, and that there's a model in place for change, managing change rather, and the idea of gap analysis and really using data to make decisions about the future and about directions that we're going to take. Um, yeah, you might think we can skip some of these steps and save time, but in one of the readings that I read for our module 7, yeah, I clearly remember that they've done studies, and the amount of time that organizations spend on strategic planning results in success. So the second critical finding that I think I've come to as a part of this course has to do with strategic planning itself, and that's really something, or this idea that if strategic planning is not done properly, it can be in itself a huge waste of time. I think this kind of comes from me personally reflecting on the strategic planning sessions and meetings and things that I've been involved with, and now what I know about the enterprise architecture frameworks and ADMs and things like this. Yeah, basically, kind of all strategic planning time is not equivalent, especially not if you're doing it poorly or not taking into consideration key elements of enterprise architecture. Finally, so I think I've come to kind of realize how essential technology integration is for success in business these days. And that means that it must be aligned to the vision and business goals, and it can't be kind of a side deal or like you find if something looks really exciting, it has to be aligned to those vision and business architectures if it's going to achieve what we want it to. So again, kind of like this idea that technology, for technology's sake, is not appropriate. It needs to be for the purpose of, um, you know, attaining or achieving business goals and competencies, moving the organization from its current to its desired state, and that kind of like hierarchical, that layered structure of the enterprise architecture that puts vision and business before application, data, and technology is key. And so without that, you can have situations where money is lost, huge amounts of money, like in many of a few of the readings we read over the course. Time is wasted. Teachers become frustrated, or whoever the employees are of the enterprise. And so yeah, those are the three kind of critical things that I want to take, or that I've taken home from the course. There's many other things. And really, I guess on top of all this is, I think, like Dr. Danielson, you have kind of related to, I mean, personally, I'm just kind of touching the iceberg, or seeing the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, and that yeah, when I go about planning or being involved in these different meetings, I'm definitely going to come back to this again and again and again. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation. Yeah, I enjoyed the course very much, and yeah, I definitely am going to keep learning about enterprise architecture. Thank you.